Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mix It Up with ML, episode 10. Little milestone here, double digits. And what better way to bring in that milestone by having probably my best friend, Cassandra Jared Young on the pod. So thank you for joining, Cassandra. This is going to be a blast. I already know. Thanks for coming on, bro.
Yeah, no problem.
Perfect. All right. So yeah, I'd like to start the pod with the guest, just introducing, our friendship, just to give the listeners a little context and for the conversation.
I'll tell this story for the people.
Tell the story for the people.
So, the first time I saw Michael Lotito, I love telling this story.
This pod's gonna be a wild one. I already know.
The first time I saw Michael Lotito, I was in Jadwin Gym, okay, and
dude, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you didn't even.
I didn't even know this story.
You don't even know this story, bro. This is a special one right here.
Okay.
So,
what's Jadwin Gym for the listeners?
So Jadwin Gym is the men and women's varsity basketball sort of. Well, I would say it's an arena, but then there's like a track that goes like on the opposite side of the basketball court, and it's also like 6 levels underground. So Jadwin Gym is sort of like this amphitheater mixed in with like a track with an indoor baseball. It's just sort of like
it's unique.
It's one of a kind. Let's call it like a athletic facility, the Princeton Varsity Athletic Facility. So I'm there on the main court at Jadwin Gym, Pete Carrill Court, and I had recently signed up to be a manager at Princeton for Princeton's basketball team, for the men's basketball team. The reason why I did that was because I wanted to play, and they told me that they don't take walk-ons, but they could allow me to be a manager, and I would be able to go to their practices. And so I was like, well, I guess I'll take that rather than, I don't know, join a frat or something like that.
Right.
So I signed on to do that, and I was pretty bummed out about not being able to play because I felt like I could. And, but they were having pickup one Saturday, and this was like maybe the fall of my freshman year.
Okay.
And so they're playing pickup, and I'm looking at these guys like they're not like anything crazy. They had this one guy. They had 3 guys who were really good at that year. Devin Kennedy, who ended up becoming probably my other best friend at Princeton. Miles Stevens, and then Amir Bell. And then everybody else was really, really good. Obviously, like really good players, but they weren't like, whoa, like these guys are so far better than me per se. And but then they had this one white dude out there. And he had kind of like these like long Adidas shorts. His socks were like kind of high.
They
were
like
the white top. He's kind of like a blue collar dude, like real hard nose. But he was like automatic from like 10 to 15 feet, and he kept hitting corner jumpers. And he was just talking crazy to this one guy on the team that I knew named Mike LeBlanc. This guy Mike LeBlanc was like 6'8". He was like kind of like a stretch big. He was pretty tough. But this guy was going right at him. And the thing was that this dude looked unfamiliar because, I was a manager, so I knew pretty much everybody on the team, but I was trying to figure out like, who is this guy, this dude right here? And he's just jawing at Mike LeBlanc like the whole time, jawing at him, hitting like jabs and swat, like, yeah, you can't guard me. Like, and then like Mike LeBlanc is like trying to back him down, and he's like chesting him like,
oh my God, this is embarrassing.
This dude is like really getting after it, like really competing. And the thing about Princeton's basketball team, sorry, I gotta stay hydrated. The thing about Princeton's basketball team is like their open gyms. When they have open gym, it's not necessarily like really fiery, like guys are going at each other. Like we're from Princeton, so we like the style of basketball is like backdoor cuts and like like it's not like inner city ball. Like there's people that come from inner cities and stuff like that, but the style of play isn't like really gritty and like competitive. But this dude, the point of the story is this dude had this like real blue collar sort of just like something different. And I was like, yo, I like him. So afterwards, I said what's up to the guy, I said my name's Michael Lotito, whatever. Man, I didn't really see him around. And then maybe like a month or two later, I had tried out for club basketball because, it sort of started to set in that Princeton's varsity team wouldn't take me. So I still wanted to play competitively in some way. And club is, for the people who don't know what that is, club is essentially like a level above intramurals. So I would say it's like intramural. So
There
basically
you
like
go.
the best intramural players at different schools around the region that your school is in. They'll play each other at different schools. So we played, schools in the Philadelphia area, schools in the northern New Jersey area, and then some other schools in the central and southern New Jersey areas. And then, so yeah, that my freshman year, I tried out for the club basketball team. There was a lot of people out there. You know, my class had a couple of good other good club basketball players. We tried out. I made the team and stuff like that. And it was like really cool to make the team because I felt like I met some people who were kind of like-minded to me and whatever. And then
Whatever.
there's this the captain of the team. His name was RJ, and I had like during the club basketball trial, I had played on the same team as RJ, and I had played really well. And RJ took a liking to me. Shout out to G Pop if you're watching this, man. Shout out to RJ.
Shout out Arj.
So RJ, showed a lot of love and was like, "Yo, I like this kid." You know what I'm saying? It's like my grandson. He was calling me,
Yeah.
and and I was like, "Grandson, like it's kind of weird, but it's all good."
Right.
And he was like, "Yeah, let me introduce you to my son." And then it turned out to be the dude that I had seen like maybe a month or two before in Michael Lotito. And so from there, we became kind of like a family, you know what I'm saying? And I mean, the rest is honestly history after that point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, went at the end of the freshman year, the club team went to the club basketball nationals out in Indianapolis. So we got on the plane to go and play basketball. It was super dope. Then the next year I became the captain of the club team with ML. And from that point on, we just became like brothers, not just doing club basketball stuff, but practicing against a women's team and
Mm-hmm.
doing. I mean, he taught basically. I mean, ML is pretty much the reason why I am going to graduate from Princeton next week.
He's gassing me, listeners.
I probably would have
He's
failed out.
gassing me right now.
He taught me academic discipline and like how to read properly. Like yeah, like so yeah, owe a lot to ML. But yeah, the rest is history. But yeah, it all pretty much started that one. Like I distinctly remember the one day in Jaguar. And I was like, wow, this dude is kind of like me. He look like me out there. I like him. I like him. I like him.
Bro, I didn't even know about the fact that you were there on that day where I was just like kind of out of pocket, talking way too much trash against varsity players. But I like, there you go. You were there and you gave a pretty good summary there. But even for the listeners, like this bond is crazy. Me and Jared spent like
Inordinate amount of time.
inordinate amount of time
Like,
together to the point where like we were, scrumming and wrestling each other because we got so sick of each other. But love this dude, love this guy. Honestly, my best bro. And so I have so many things I want to ask you, dude. And hopefully we can bring some, knowledge and insight to the listeners.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
bro, the first thing, right? We talked about our, very deep bond. And honestly, on my end, I would say what really drew me to you is sort of your attitude towards life of like always attacking it, right? And trying to get the most out of it. But
Yeah.
also it was that you weren't denying like hardships and difficult things in life, but you're always sort of seeing the light in it and the positive side of it, right? And I thought that was pretty unique in people I had been with in terms of friendships and just people, right?
Princeton's usually like pretty much a negative place, so
Right.
yeah.
Or you could have people who are like kind of all the way on the other end, like completely positive, which I would say, I might have been like that in the past. And so I guess like I wanted to touch on your attitude and so your philosophy on life, right? And where that came from. And so I think, I don't want to speak for you, but I think a lot of it came from, things that you've gone through in your life, right? Like being overweight when you were younger,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And just like difficulties you face with your father passing and everything. And
Yeah.
You've been through a lot. And so I want to hear, like, could you just share with the listeners about that journey
Sure.
sort of how it's influenced your mindset and the places it's brought you, and just your perspectives and all that. I just love to kind of dive into that.
Yeah, I think I'm an only child. I have two like very overachieving parents. Uh, my mom is definitely my hero. Um, she's a trauma surgeon. She works 85 to 100 hours a week in her mid 50s, although I'm not supposed to know how old she is. Um,
Sorry, Bondo.
yeah, but she works 85 to 100 hours a week. She doesn't really make excuses. She's not the type of mom that will pack your lunch and be cooking dinner and be taking pictures at your game. Like that's not the kind of mom she is. She's the kind of mom that the lights are on. I have everything I need. I did all the extracurricular activities I wanted when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And like there would be nights when I would go with her to the call room and sleep in the call room, and then I'd get up the next morning and go to school, or find myself a ride or walk somewhere because she was working. And I get a lot. I mean, my mom just is relentless, and she just works so hard. Like when you kind of grow up with that being your mom, a lot of people I feel like would characterize their dad as being that way, but really like my work ethic or just like kind of the attacking life thing really comes from my mom, and just watching her, and she's just like she just never complains, like never. um
Mm.
and so I think from that role model is what I draw a lot of that from. And then on the other side you have my dad. He grew up in Section 8 housing in Pittsburgh. Got football scholarships to Notre Dame. Was a football star, and then decided actually to go to Princeton instead. And he went to Princeton in from 1979 to 1983. And so his kind of whole thing was just about preparation, and he taught me a lot about just how to be like, in order for you to be successful, it's not luck. Like you have to be consistent, you have to be disciplined. And a lot of what I learned from him was just kind of about how like no goal that you have for yourself is too big if you like playing it the right way
Mm.
and you like do the right work, not just working hard, but working smart, and really understanding sort of certain things. So, and my dad, he was kind of like, it was like, he's kind of like a general. I wouldn't say like military, like stern, not like stern at all, very loving family.
Yeah.
But he had these like 10 rules that he put on the fridge
Mm-hmm.
when I was a little boy, and I would have to like recite them. And it would just be stuff like, can't is not in a man's vocabulary. Don't make excuses, make excellence. He used to say stuff like he would like text me riddles when I was like 11. I got a flip phone, and he would like text me riddles in the morning, like lose the show pony, find the war hook, be like a shark.
Yeah.
He would just say, like, he had these little phrases, and and he was my coach. Like growing up, I was really, really talented in football. And so, I was a coach's son. So, we would spend like time watching film of youth football, and like it just taught me a lot about preparation and like being really focused. And so that's basically a lot of it just comes from my parents. When I was 12, my father had passed away. But like with like the foundation that he gave to me on that front pretty much lasted me a lifetime, in terms of just like the lessons and stuff that I learned from him about, being a man essentially. Uh,
Mm.
and yeah, in terms of like being positive and stuff like that, yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of it is tied to, being like not being like the favorite. Like I never was, nobody, I would say in my high school, like no one really expected me to be the kid that goes to Princeton, or the kid that just kind of, you know, I remember like in high school, we were like in the basketball locker room, and they were having some just kind of discussion about the people that would make the most money or like be the most famous in my class. Who
Mm.
would it be? And like nobody was saying me. Like I was just pretty much like, didn't really win academic awards or athletic awards in high school. So, I mean, that whole journey, it just humbled me, and I think it's really good because when you come from, I've been conditioned to have success. I mean, you're a psychology major. Like
Right.
my whole upbringing was essentially a operant conditioning to be successful.
There you
Like,
go. Okay.
yeah, like it was literally like a Pavlov experience in success. Like
Mm,
every single day, like I'm being affirmed with like this is what, like, you want to be successful, like you like, my mom wake up like clockwork 5 in the morning,
mm,
like daily. My dad, like, hey, like you're gonna do this report on the Black Panthers in the fourth grade, and you're gonna write me this paper, and then I'm gonna give you a 7 out of 10 on the paper because, like, I'm gonna teach you that you need to be twice as good as everyone else. Like, this
mm,
kind of stuff doesn't happen in everyone's house. And so, like, I'm a Christian person, so I believe in God, and I think that, like, God gave me the experiences of like my high school and not being the most popular kid, stuff like that, because like I've been conditioned to be successful in life. And so I needed to like understand what it meant to not be successful and to be at the bottom, to really like appreciate stuff and be
mm.
humble as a person, because I feel like if everything really went my way all the time, then I would be super like egotistical and have like a lot of arrogance and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of where, and knowing that I have been conditioned for success is also what allows me to be positive, because like I know what it takes.
Mhm.
And I know, like, at the end of the day, like, no matter what happens to you, you can't really control what happens to you. You can only control how you respond to stuff. So yeah.
Bro, I mean,
So
absolutely. So much there, right? And I think you've always been wise beyond your years, right? Again, another thing that really drew me to you. And I was actually, this is the book that I sent you to read on the list, like Man's Search for Meaning, right?
yeah,
And I think it illuminated how wise beyond your years you are, because in so much of that book contains sort of what you're talking about here and what you've learned through your life, right? And it's the idea of like tragic optimism, basically. Like this guy in the book was in the Nazi concentration camps, right? Like lost his brother, his wife, pregnant wife, like his parents, everything. And he was just kind of talking about what he learned there. And I love the idea of tragic optimism of like life is inevitably going to bring suffering, right? But it's like, it's what you always hear, exactly what you just said, of like, you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond to it, right? And I think that's a way to, acknowledge that there's pain in the world, but also just choose your response. Because at the end of the day, you can always choose. That's sort of the freedom of being a human and what we have at the end of the day.
yeah,
And I think that's really present in what you're talking about. And I'm wondering, do you think that help? Because I feel like we haven't talked about this much actually, but you like losing weight and being overweight and then losing your weight. Do you think that played a role in that and everything you've talked about, like your perspective, but that choice, right? And I can't speak from it because I've never actually had the experience of being overweight and what that's like.
yeah,
But I think it's important for people to kind of hear from you, you know, not that your situation applies to everybody, et cetera,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
it's important to hear sort of that perspective.
Well, in terms of, I guess, the choice, at the end of the day, like, it wasn't necessarily a choice. I had to, because
Mm,
I was just tired of it. Like,
mm,
there comes a certain point as an overweight person where you just can't stand for it anymore. Like, the comments that you might get from people, or just like the way in which people kind of speak about you, like it just is like I basically just put my foot down. Like one summer, I just put my foot down, said like no more excuses. Like, I'm gonna do like whatever it takes to get this done.
mm.
Um, and I feel like in some ways, some choices, like, that's a tough question. Like,
It's a tough subject, right? I don't know the
it wasn't
answers.
necessarily, it was a choice that I made, but the circumstances leading up to the choice made it the clear, like, it wasn't a hard choice. Like, it was like, this just has to be done. Like,
Mm,
it was, because like my whole childhood, like, I would spend time like running around the track in a trash bag so that I could make football weight,
mm,
or I would constantly be being benched, and then like they would put me in the clutch, and then I would like deliver. Like it was always like something, just back and forth and back and forth. And I bet when that's your experience athletically, especially, you just get sick of it, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to do whatever. Like I'm going to do whatever it takes to just not have this be a reality. But then, you know, on the flip side, a lot of people are overweight in this country, especially, and they don't make that choice. So,
Correct.
like I said, being conditioned for success, I realized that a lot of it was tied to my excuses. One day, you know what I'm saying? Honestly, it was like a eureka moment. But like, one day I just realized a lot of it's just tied to my excuses, and me not like giving everything I have in the tank. Um, but a lot of people don't have that realization, and that's just simply because they don't have people that are like trying to build them to be successful.
Mm,
And that might be just because the people that they're around aren't successful themselves, like truthfully.
mm. S-
So
See, bro, I love that point, right? Because I'm sitting over here, I'm thinking, yeah, like what is it? And also, can you adjust the monitor maybe to like
yeah,
so your light? Yeah,
my-
there you go. So we can see you a little better. Perfect.
yeah.
Um,
Let me see. Try to
take your
get.
time. Get yourself right.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. But I think, bro, like a lot of people think about this question in terms of like personal choice and then like genetics involved. But what you just highlighted is the people around them, right? And their environment, who's talking to them, right?
Yeah,
And like you were able to even have that positive environment and upbringing, but it was still even tough for you. So I can imagine how tough it might be for somebody who's not surrounded by that support, like the support system. I feel like when people think about like biopsychosocial model of like what's happening and why, like people really neglect that social like support network. I
yeah. And
feel.
the thing
Would you
was
agree with
though,
that?
yeah, I would definitely agree with that. But it was kind of funny because like it wasn't necessarily like a social support network in the traditional sense of like people encouraging me to do it.
Right.
People encourage, and this has been the constant theme of my life, is like people encourage you when it's done. So when I was getting
Mm,
started and stuff like that, the motivation from the social motivation was the comments
mm,
and the people like, and just the little digs that I would be getting, and sort of just like, everything was funny to people, like, and it was that kind of social motivation. So it was kind of like an inverted, it
okay.
was inverted in the sense that even like, just like people like one thing I'll say is that at least people were honest with me. Like, so people around me, like in my inner circle, my family, they didn't sugarcoat stuff with me, you know what I'm saying? And
Mm,
say like it's cool to be overweight. Like there wasn't people, because I feel like it's kind of weird, but in a backwards way, people being positive to you when you're overweight, like I was, and I wasn't crazy overweight. I still played 3 sports. I still was very, very active. I just like wasn't at my full potential. And like sometimes people say, "Oh, it's okay. You're just big boned," or you might have a family that's like doesn't want to hurt your feelings. But my family hurt my feelings, and they just
mm.
kept it a stack. So it's like that honesty, in a weird way, is like what motivated me to like really channel that and turn it into something.
Right.
Um, and that's interesting, like because it's like it's a weird, because like although like you can have stimulus that's positive, you can have stimulus that's negative, but positive stimulus doesn't necessarily beget positive results in the same way that
Okay.
negative stimulus doesn't necessarily beget negative results.
Okay.
So and like we talk about basketball coaching a lot, like I might have like for me, I need someone that's actually going to coach me and not just say like, oh, don't take that shot.
Right.
But if someone's saying, you shoot 16% from this spot, like move in, then that kind of negative feedback is going to trigger something positive in my mind.
Right.
As opposed to, someone just saying like, oh, you're good, just like keep shooting. That's not gonna really work for me, because it's like I'm like it's not gonna change anything. So
Right.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but
I think it does. I think, but what I will say though, what do you think about this? Is that the latter feedback that you just mentioned about like, oh, you're shooting 16% from here, let's move in. I would classify that as more constructive feedback. Like that
Yeah,
would be
yeah.
more as constructive feedback, constructive criticism. Whereas you actually mentioned that like people's criticisms of you in terms of like their comments and negativity about like your body size or whatever actually fueled you. And I would say that maybe that's not even constructive in the traditional sense. It's a bit just like kind of negative, but you let it fuel you. And
Yeah.
it's interesting, right? Because I think a lot of guys like Kobe and some of like the greatest ever sort of are fueled by that. And I would say that like, you know, ML, like I try to like, I'm like, oh, should I be fueled by negative like criticism and feedback? But to some extent, there is a place for that in this world too. And I think you're sort of highlighting that, right? Where that fueled you. It wasn't necessarily even constructive. They weren't even trying to help you, but they were kind of like maybe even making fun of you, and you let that fuel you type thing. That's hard though.
Yeah. And I mean, it's still stuff that like, and the thing is like, that's not an overweight thing. People are always going to say something about you.
Right.
We can get into that part, you know what I'm saying, later
Go
on.
for it. Go for it. Yeah.
People are always going to say something about you, like,
right.
No matter what. Like you mentioned LeBron James, like people find a way to say something about him all the time.
Yes.
And same thing with me. I wasn't overweight. Now it's like, oh, why is Jared always with his shirt off?
Right.
Or, like Jared, put sleeves on. Like, why are you like posting this workout video? Like, but then 2 years ago you were like, said, hey, Jared, take the extra cookie. So it's like, people are always going to open up their mouth to say something, like literally, make no mistake about, like, people are always going to do that. And I don't know why, but for me especially, like people just love to say stuff to me in that way. Like it could be anything. Like people are always saying something. And I don't know if it's because like I'm like you were mentioning, kind of have this positive attitude, or I don't know why. Like, but
I think it's because you're doing things, bro. Because like, you're a doer.
Like, that's why. So but at the end of the day, I love it. Like now I've learned to embrace it, because when people say that stuff, it just gets me going. Like it really gets me going. Like a perfect example of this was like within the club basketball team. 2 years ago I couldn't dunk, and we had these guys on the club basketball team. I won't name drop them, and they probably won't be watching this, but they were talking about how everybody on the team could dunk, or this, that, and the third, and how Jared was the only one who couldn't. And I screenshotted the message and I said, okay, like that would be the last time that somebody says something to this effect to me, because I'm going to be able to dunk. And fast forward like a year and a half, I catch stuff off the backboard, I catch lobs, like can dunk off of both legs, I can dunk with both hands. So like if it wasn't for somebody saying something to that effect to me, then I wouldn't be able to dunk still to this day, because I just wouldn't have had the, like, it really just, just when people start talking, when somebody says something negative to me, like it just gets me going. Like that's I wish it wasn't, I wish I wasn't as extreme about it in that way, because it isn't good to like loot, like, you shouldn't really be losing sleep over it.
Right.
But at the same time, it is definitely a great thing when you can channel it and put it into something positive. And like you said, I mean, that's just kind of been the story of my whole life. Like, it's kind of being someone that people talked about with a sort of negative tint for one reason or another, honestly.
Right. And I think, bro, like with everything in life, there's a gradient to it, right? It's a spectrum, and it's not just yes or no or black and white. It's sort of, you exist on a spectrum of how you let, the negative criticism fuel you, whether it's like making you lose sleep on the all the way extreme end, or on the other end, like somebody who I would honestly say you've helped me learn how to like become more comfortable with being somebody who's being themselves and like being criticized, right? So it's like I look up to you because you're doing something, and you're not caring about what people are going to say about you. Like it's impossible to not care, but when I say that, I mean you're trying to just do things, right? And I feel like even me starting this pod, bro, like doing things is like hard because you're afraid of what people are going to say, what people are going to think of you. And so I just want to commend you, right, on that, because you've inspired me to just get out there. So come from this end of the spectrum more towards the middle And hopefully, I've helped you at least move a little bit.
Move a little part.
And that's what the best friendships do, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Because I'm definitely crazy. Like, and it's definitely tiring. It's definitely tiring. But I've shut a lot of people up, and I'll continue to shut people up. So honestly, it is what it is, in the sense that I can't really change that. It's kind of like how I'm wired.
Yes.
And I accept that. You know what I mean? But over time, I'm slowly learning to just kind of pick my battles like a lot more. So yeah, I definitely credit you for that. So yeah.
I love what you said, bro. I think that's important for people to hear. And I'm so into this, like the psychology of just being and like what we experience. And I think we're all wired in certain ways, right? And I think it's sort of our task in life to sort of move towards like the optimal level of whatever that spectrum is, of whatever character trait, right? It's like when everybody has a certain character trait and certain levels of it, right? And it's all about sort of trying to find that optimal level of it, or whatever word you want to use for it. Because like you can't turn somebody who's type A into type B, right? But we can all sort of exist on this gradient and this spectrum and try to be better with sort of the wiring that we have. And I think you're doing that, dude. So I just need to, I need to commend you for that.
Appreciate that.
Bro, absolutely. And so next question, dude, would be, moving pretty organically from that, right? And your doer mentality, and you're always out there and putting yourself out there, is the See More Good Foundation, SMG, that you created. Can you talk a little bit about what that is, what went into that, and then we'll kind of go from there. I would love people to hear about this though.
Yeah. So See More Good Foundation is a foundation I co-founded here in Central PA to teach kids basketball skills training, as well as financial literacy basics and life lessons through the game of basketball. So the way it kind of started up was like, at Princeton, I was and before that in my high school, I was very, very active in extracurriculars. And I put a lot of time into them, and I would kind of like go all out for them. And you don't really make an impact on people, and kind of like glorified, like it's just not
resume building.
Yeah, glorified resume building. Like, it's not necessarily the most fulfilling work, and it's definitely not the most appreciated or needed work at all. And so I was kind of fed up, like, with my extracurriculars by the end of my junior year at Princeton, to the point where I kind of took a step back from most of them, besides club basketball and working at the Frisk Campus Center. But I was pretty much ready to just call it quits and graduate from Princeton and get my little desk job, and just get a 9 to 5,
Classic,
and just let it play out, and focus on whatever was to come from that. But then we got sent home because of the coronavirus, and I got back home here to York, and York has a very rough inner city. We're top 20 in the nation in murder per capita. There was like four shootings last week in the span of 2 days. So like gun violence is a really, really bad problem here. But at the same time, it's a really, really, really vibrant basketball community, and basketball is sort of like it's not a football town, it's not a soccer town, it's a basketball place. Where people just love to hoop, and it's definitely some place that, like, there's a lot of people that are here that had a lot of talent to play basketball, but basically because of the way that life works in this town are either in jail or unfortunately passed away, or on some sort of avenue in that direction, truthfully. So when I got back, all of my closest friends are college basketball players from growing up. And, we were just playing a lot of basketball. That's basically how we socialized. And, I had always loved to work with the youth. And I was a recreational basketball coach at Princeton. And so I was like, looking for something to do that would impact the youth in my community, to prevent kids who spend their whole youth playing basketball, what are you going to do when you don't necessarily make it Division I, and you kind of don't have, any kind of know-how about how to like succeed in your life or any kind of identity other than that. So I began to like look for ways to utilize basketball to reach and impact the youth, to say, basketball is just a tool, and it's just one of the many things that you can do with yourself in life. And so financial literacy, although it might not be like, I once received a hate comment on Twitter about how like in order to be financially literate, you have to be able to have access to money. So let me not say that financial literacy is like the end all be all, and if I teach kids how to manage their money, that they'll escape from poverty, because that's not at all true.
Right.
But it is something that can help kids. Money management and stuff like that is just a very useful skill, and something that they don't teach you in school, that I feel like specifically for African American communities, they prey upon. When I say they, I mean American institutions sort of take advantage of the fact that people are not financially literate. So then what they do is they essentially take advantage of people who have low access to capital and money, and then like make that problem worse by leaving them financially illiterate. And so, I had the opportunity to work on Wall Street my sophomore year with Morgan Stanley.
How was that?
It was hated it. I just really didn't like it at all. But I did learn a lot from that experience, and I learned how super wealthy people manage their money. And it makes a ton of sense. And some of the principles that I was able to learn there, I felt like, well, if I taught this to some kids in my community, I mean, they could change a lot of things for their family just with a few things, such as, putting your money into appreciating assets, trying to own land, like certain principles that honestly don't even take that much money to do. But if you don't know about these different mechanisms, then you'll never be able to do them, rather than, take your money and buying, Air Jordans, or buying like expensive jewelry or watches or things that just depreciate over time. If I can reach a kid in 7th grade and say, hey, when you start to get your paycheck from your first job, put a little bit of it in the stock market, and you can get, 4x, 5x returns. I feel, I don't really know if that's the end all be all problem. And I'm not sitting here acting like I'm some sort of savior or anything like that, but I definitely know that it was much needed in my community to some extent. So, partnered with my two co-founders, Malik Martin, Jaime Orr, and we, created this organization. First, it started off as we wanted to do a community day and basically just have a day for a kids basketball tournament, and then have vendors come out and like, support small local businesses, and have them like selling t-shirts, selling food, stuff like that. And then we made a Facebook post about it, and basically like hundreds of people responded, like saying how awesome of an idea it was. And, we started getting messages like, oh, what time is camp next week?
Right.
We were like, camp? Like, okay, we can have a camp. And then, next thing you know, we started having, we had a boys camp and we had a girls camp. Those both went really, really well. And we were able to talk to the kids a little bit about financial literacy. They were really loving it. And then from there, we had like a weekly summer camp, socially distanced, and we had a capacity of 20 participants. And like, well, as socially distanced as basketball could be, but like they allowed outdoor athletic activity. So long as you pass the temperature check and stuff like that. So we did it according to the state guidelines. And then so we had those weekly camps, and I was actually able to continue to run that on top of working a summer internship with a management consulting company. And so that's what I did like last summer. And then over the course of that time, we got a couple of like corporate sponsors, and then like got our legitimate paperwork to become a 501c3 organization. So it's been pretty dope. We've been on a hiatus recently because of the fact that my co-founder Malik Martin just recently committed to Drexel University for basketball. He played at Monmouth University, where he was a all-conference performer, so he was busy doing that. Jaime now is starting his own clothing line. and graduating from Central Penn College. So he was handling his academics and just sort of, doing what he needs to do for his life. And I was graduating from Princeton as well. So we had a couple of, we had like fall clinics for our kids, like some preseason prep to get them ready. We had two girls that regularly came to our camps make all county for varsity basketball this year.
There you go.
We had 3 boys that work with us, not like we're the only people that they train with or anything like that, but they just support us and come to our and just down with the movement. They were all county. So it was really, really cool just to kind of see the growth of different kids, both boys and girls on the court, especially just get the results that they wanted. And then off the court, I mean, we got kids that are getting straight A's in school and, sending me their report cards and bragging about it. So it's definitely making a change in terms of what people are starting to prioritize, at least with the kids that we've worked with. And, it's definitely been probably the greatest thing that I've done in terms of like what matters. Because, there was a lot of things I did at Princeton for people that nobody cared about. So, yeah.
And what is it about working with the youth that matters so much to you? And what is that, right? What is driving that? Because you're making such an impact on these kids' lives and you're identified. This is what I care about. So why is that? Do you think?
I mean, because for one, like I was once that kid and like when my father had passed, there was a lot of people that came into my life and sort of, knew what my dad had put into me and just wanted to make sure that they wanted to make sure that, my success that he had planned for me and sort of had tried to build into me came into fruition, which, I haven't accomplished like what I want to accomplish, but I'd say it did. And those, I owe a lot to those people. And so I just felt immense gratitude for them. And I realized that like a lot of the times, going back to gun violence or crime and stuff like that, a lot of that just happens because people don't have role models and they don't have those kind of people that come in and guide them in the right direction. And
Right.
so someone who, doesn't, who knows what that means. Like, I just felt like, I didn't really necessarily deserve to be helped in the extent that I've been helped by people. So like, it would be really selfish of me not to help others, but specifically helping youth. Thing about youth is that, I mean, they're so open-minded and they, I really truly don't believe that anyone is born bad. Like no one is, everyone is born the same way, and your experiences and who and what you have access to is really what determines your future, and you really are who you surround yourself with. So I really hope that, when the kids come in and see themselves in the presence of me and people I associate with myself with, they strive to emulate that. So I knew the kind of power that I had to do that, especially because there's not a whole lot of college kids that are like really vocal and interested in doing that work. And I just, I've been sort of called like performative for sort of like putting it on social media that I was working with kids. But I realized that like as someone who has been blessed to, have the experiences that I've had, like I have a certain like platform per se to show people, other people who are, doing things that like similar to what I'm doing, that, they should also try to work with kids also, because at the end of the day, the future is in their hands. And, there's so much you can do, being the president of your, I don't know, eating club.
Right.
And, impacting a group of other 20 and 22 to 23-year-old people that are pretty much stuck in their ways at that point. Like, I mean, not what kind of, but the extent to which the impacts that you're making on those people in their overall life is far lower than what it is on a 9 to 14-year-old person.
Right.
That's really why I work with the youth, because I feel like it really just has more impact, and they are really, really open-minded, and just it's a really awesome thing to just see when they buy into like what you're kind of saying to them, or when they discover their own passions, like what that can really do.
Right.
especially in an area where, you know, there's so much negativity and violence and just kind of difficulty with, you know, the government and the school districts just wonder what they can do with these young people who are just around all of this stuff all the time.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I mean, working with the youth, it's preventative, right? It's more preventative than
Yeah.
any sort of like patchwork band-aid type thing that you might do later on. So, I mean, that's why I've become interested maybe in working with kids medically, right? Because you can
Yeah.
kind of get in there early on, right?
Yeah.
And I guess like with that being said, though, for any listeners who are a little bit older, but hopefully we have some younger listeners too, I wanted to dive like a little bit more into like that financial literacy and then also like wealth creation on top of that, right? And so
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
what goes into financial literacy first, and we can sort of bounce ideas off each other because I obviously you know more than me, but I'm just trying to learn and you've inspired me to learn. But can we talk about like how do we define financial literacy and what goes into that? And then we can kind of move to like wealth creation.
So I would just say financial literacy is basically like money IQ. So
Okay.
I have this really good friend. His name is Jalen Gorham, and his dad has like the highest money IQ of anyone I know. And so it's basically like you don't have the financial being like really financially literate is the concept that you actually don't have that. You don't need to have that much money to create wealth.
Right.
So there's this sort of like preconceived notion that you know, in order to become wealthy, you need to like inherit it from this sort of family that you've had, or you need to, you know, make a company and become like Mark Zuckerberg or something like that. But you know, if you have a really high money IQ, it's the same way of like basketball IQ. Like you don't necessarily have to be the most athletic or the most like naturally talented and gifted basketball player to be good at basketball, because if you have a high basketball IQ, then that's nearly as effective as being
Right.
more athletic and more naturally talented than your opposition, because like you know what to do when, and you like can like just capitalize on that
I love that.
knowledge and sense. So it's the same thing. Like being financially literate is just is this idea that, you know, when you get money or like it can be anything, a dollar, you're gonna take the maximum amount of value from that amount of money that you can possibly extract from it. And like I'm not perfectly financially literate right now. Like
Right.
for example, like I spend too much money eating, you know, Chipotle, because I just don't often have the time to cook for myself, or
Mhm.
you know, I spend too much money trying to find the right pair of basketball shoes because, you know, like I need to have good basketball shoes, but I spend too much money on it. And there's definitely ways I could be more frugal. Well, not frugal, because frugal means like cheap, but I could be more, I could have a higher money IQ for certain. But you know, I have investments in the stock market, and I have like, you know, some land that I'm invested in. So like I've tried to be like as financially literate. I you know, help to make payments for my own car, stuff like that. But like, you know, it's an ongoing process. And I think for older people, what's really dope about financial literacy is that like there's no ceiling to it. Like you can always
Yes.
you can always kind of layer on like your understanding of money and how to maximize it. Because like money isn't everything, and like that, like money doesn't buy you happiness and stuff like that. But at the same time, like being broke and not having money is also not going to get you happiness as well. So, you know, at the end of the day, like if you can sort of be financially literate, it prevents you from feeling this urge to have a bunch of money, because you can do more with less. Like I have a really,
Yes.
like I
And
mentioned,
that's financial freedom,
yeah,
right?
that's
That would
financial
be
freedom.
financial freedom.
Like so, like Devin Kennedy, for example, he's gonna soon be a millionaire in the NBA after he has a long career dropping buckets on people's head. Um, but you know, Devin, like he's super financially literate actually, and he has taught me a lot about like how to do more with less, and he would, you know, go on travels and, you know, like get food and stuff like that, like for, like doing a lot more with less. So, you know, at the end of the day, that would take a lot of pressure off of you to try and like become an investment banker. Like, so I'm guessing your audience is like a lot of Princeton people. Like, there's like a lot of pressure to become an investment banker or a consultant or something like that,
Right.
or become a doctor, because like you feel like you have this certain quality of life that you want for yourself, and so you need like a lot of money to get that quality of life. But if you're financially literate, that takes a lot of that pressure off to get more money, because
Yes.
you can do so much more with so much less. So it's like every additional like $1,000 that you get in salary, that's just like to your advantage, to the point where, honestly, what's ideal is like you have enough financial literacy to the point where you can live with $60,000 a year, but you're making 100.
Mm,
So it's like your life is like you're so financially literate that like Rob Gronkowski, for example, he doesn't even touch his contract money because he just lives off of his endorsements. Like, that's super awesome and super financially literate. And at the end of the day, like that makes a lot of difference in his life, and it will make a lot of difference in the life of his kids and future generations of Gronkowski. So,
and I think two things are key there to kind of pull out, right? One, you mentioned there's no ceiling to financial literacy. So it's like I've kind of heard it said that, you want to work at least a fraction of as hard at your financial literacy as you do on your day job, right? Because it's like I can read all these books about medicine, or you can do all this stuff about politics, read all these books, right? But if you could do that, you can also read like one financial book a year and sort of educate yourself, and it can go ongoing, right?
yeah.
And then the second part being like living below your means is like, if I had to summarize like the number one lesson from the book that I read called The White Coat Investor, which is really just like good investment advice for anybody, but it's like geared towards medical students. It's just like living below your means, right? Which is what you said, which is where you don't have to touch all this other money and not letting your lifestyle inflate, and staying below your means so that you can be free, right? Like, that's real freedom, as opposed to inflating your lifestyle to your salary. You're kind of like shackled to your salary in a way, right? So like that's real financial freedom. And I think, like, moving on to wealth creation, like one thing that you've helped me think about, right? Because I feel like as a medical student, I'm more geared towards this, like, do-gooders of America type perspective, and like, oh, I just want to like help people and I'm not worried about money that much, right? But I think this year I've started to realize that there is a way to like ethically create wealth, and that it's a positive thing to create wealth for society, because it can be a positive sum game for society and you can help other people. And so, like, can we talk a little bit about wealth creation and sort of how you see that? Because I've heard it defined as having assets that earn while you sleep, and not renting out your time, right? Like, you can't create wealth by renting out your time, as in like you put in your input to your day job and then you get paid sort of salary, basically. And so what would you say as far as like wealth creation, any keys for listeners to sort of build up that aspect?
Yeah, so I mean, again, I'm trying to figure out how to build my own wealth.
Right.
But I think number one is leveraging. So not only like freeing your time from your money, but also leveraging like other people who you know are experts, not using them, leveraging them.
Okay.
So I once read this book called Think and Grow Rich, and
Right.
basically saying how like smart people know what they know, but wise people know what they don't know.
Okay.
And so they essentially have access to other people or other systems that allow them to like capture what they don't know, as
Mm.
well as, and then they also have what they know. And so this sort of if you have access to true wealth creation is being able to have other people like give like 10% of your money to someone who you know, or to some system that you know will like is not maybe in an area that you're comfortable with, or you have
Right.
a wealth of expertise in, but you have like 10% of money to give to like this other cause that will then give you like 4x returns. So basically being able to outsource and being comfortable outsourcing to the point where you're like an octopus. Like I look at like being rich as a fish, and I look at like wealth as an octopus. So
Okay.
like a fish has like its vital organs, and it has its like one tail, and it's kind of swims in one direction. But an octopus has like 8 arms, and it's like you cut off one arm, well, it still got 7 more. So
Mm,
like essentially what wealth is not just being able to like make money while you sleep, but also being able to make money in so many different ways that if you lose some kind of stream of income, or you lose some sort of access to money, like in one sense, you still have like 7 or 8 other senses in which that money is preserved. And then you can take money from those pockets and then just rebuild back the one arm that you lost.
right.
That's essentially like what symbolizes wealth creation to me.
Right. And so for somebody our age, right, who's graduating from college, and moving out into the workforce, how do you begin that journey? Because that seems to be a long-term journey, right? Like, what are some actionable steps that somebody today could take?
Yeah. So first and foremost, you got to have a Roth IRA.
Yep.
And so what the Roth IRA is essentially a business account, a retirement business account that you can't take money out of. And you basically can like allocate funds in there and put them into the stock market or put them into bonds. And you have like a certain limit contribution you can put in every year. I think it's like
6K. Yeah,
yeah,
6K.
$6,000. You put 6,000 into the Roth IRA, and basically it gets taxed up front, so it doesn't get taxed on its future value. So that means
Yeah.
that the taxes that you pay on it at the beginning are far less than like the taxes of, let's say,
Tax protected.
yeah. So let's say you have a bunch of really really lucrative assets in there that grow like over the course of a year. Like you're not gonna be taxed on the future value of it. You get taxed on like the value of what it was at the beginning.
Right.
And within that Roth IRA, again, I'm not a licensed financial advisor. I didn't
Right.
take Series 7 or Series 22, but within that IRA, you would obviously want to have some ETFs, which are exchange traded funds. And so what those allow you to do is like decrease your volatility by buying like portions of the most prominent stocks in a certain industry. So you might like the Jets ETF, for example. You're going to buy a collection of stock in American Airlines, Southwest Airlines, United, and like all the big airlines. You're basically buying a portion, or you're buying stock in each of those in one ETF. And the ETF is essentially going to, so like let's say you were like, oh, you think that oil and gas is going to grow big this year, then you buy like an oil and gas based ETF, and that's going to basically consistently increase over the year to the point where you make some good money off of that. So yeah, definitely the Roth IRA and having ETFs in there is going to help you. I think the second thing is just learning how to cook and learning how to either having a car that's high miles per gallon. I definitely learned this lesson. Definitely didn't get a car that had the most miles per gallon that it could get. It's pretty good on miles per gallon, but I'm definitely like a big expense that I have for myself is gas, and that definitely kills. Like definitely cutting down on eating out, and like so learning how to cook and learning how to meal prep, and then having a car is a big help because if you're paying for Ubers and stuff like that, like it can get pretty tough. And a car itself is a high cost, but for your travel and transportation, you don't necessarily want to be paying for ride sharing apps, stuff like that. I would say the other thing is just making sure that if you're taking like a corporate job, that you start up your 401k.
Yep.
And make sure that you know what your company's policy is in terms of retirement. So you always want to be putting money in towards your retirement. And honestly, you don't necessarily want to be having all your money in savings per se, because savings don't grow over time. The value of the money just sits. So that's why the IRA is really good.
Yep.
If you have a Roth, you might want to just get a regular IRA as well.
Yep.
And basically, you just want to make sure that like what like A, that you're living below your means, but B, that like while you're living below your means, the money that you're saving
It's growing for you.
Is appreciating in value at some point. And that doesn't really take too much, honestly. just having a stock broker. I mean, but that's really basic. And then you want to have some kind of side hustle, like, my boy, my boy, hold on one second, I'm trying to think. So I have a good friend, Michael Osewusu. He makes videos. That's his main hustle, but he could also sell his services as a photographer.
Yeah.
A lot of people do that. A lot of people, might be like a DJ, becoming a DJ, and DJing functions and parties and stuff like that to keep some extra cash in your pocket. Definitely try to like before you join the workforce, think about an additional skill that you could pick up that could make you some money on the weekends. I got a good friend that does DoorDash.
Yes.
You know,
Great source of money.
that's definitely a great source of money, and just DoorDash a little bit. That's super flexible. I wouldn't necessarily do Uber per se because I don't like people being in my car, but that's what floats your boat. You know what I'm saying? Just try to figure out how, just from day one, try to figure out how to like release your income from the source of the main source, and
Yeah.
become like that octopus. So basically the main focus is just like how can I grow additional arms than the one that I have, coming in right now.
Right. And I think that's great advice, while also remembering, right, that like you don't want to get too involved in too many things for sure. Obviously, it's always a balance, but I love the octopus analogy, dude. And then also, like, another common thing that maybe listeners think about, because I know I was thinking about it a lot, is like the investing versus paying off your debt dilemma is like an important one to consider. And I think just for people to think about, like, you just want to look at the rate at which your debt is going to grow versus the rate at which your investments are going to grow, and sort of prioritize based on that. So, like, for example, you want to invest in your Roth or your 401k first, and then you would want to like pay off medium interest, for example, debt, because the Roth might grow 7 to 10% annually, but the medium interest rate loans would be like 5 to 6%. So sort of looking at that priority wise. So, bro, that's super helpful. Super helpful. You've helped me a lot just thinking about financial literacy, so I appreciate that. Hopefully this was at least a little bit insightful for any listeners. And then, bro, as we wrap up here at the very end, sort of what's next for you in terms of you're going to play D3 basketball at Hood College, and you chose to do that for 2 years, sort of deferring your McKinsey job at McKinsey. And so could you just talk a little bit about, what went into that and sort of what you're excited about? And, I'm really inspired by that, right? Because it took some courage to do that. It's a different path, right? Sort of going
Yeah,
full circle to what we talked about.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of being able to go play basketball at a higher level than club, I mean, I'm just ecstatic about that. I mean, I'm about to go to a workout right now. Playing basketball is really what I love to do. And I never really had gotten the chance to play at the level at which I felt like I could play at, and the opportunity to go and be coached and be actually developed was something that I just couldn't pass up on. Um, and I was fortunate enough to work for a company that liked me enough to say, hey, like, if you want to go do this and go get a graduate degree while doing so, then that's cool with us, and you'll still have your position locked down. So that was really awesome. Um, what went into it was really, number one, I was working with kids a lot and telling them to kind of follow their dreams and kind of building into them, and then realizing I wasn't really taking my own advice. And every day, some kid asked me, can you dunk? Like, why don't you play? Like, it's just always asking me stuff like that. And I was like, why don't I play? Like, I don't really know. And so from there, it was kind of just fate. I really decided that I wanted to play in January of this year. I was working out down in Frederick, Maryland, and this kind of coach came up to me and asked me, like, where do you play? And I was like, nowhere. I'm about to graduate. Da 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 da. I haven't used any eligibility. And he said, well, if you're interested, we might have some schools for you. And then from there, He was like, just send me your tape. And I had tape of club basketball and me playing against like some pro and college guys during the Corona sort of like lockout. There was like these invite only, like kind of like, what you see on Instagram
Yeah.
on the runs. So I was like, okay, I mean, this should be good enough. It turned out to be like a 5-minute tape. Sent it off to him, and then he was like, the coach liked it. They want you to come on a visit down to Hood. But then from there, I was like, well, if he likes it, then let me send it out to a couple of other coaches I know and see what they think. For example, I sent it to Oakley Spencer, one of
Shout
ML
out Oak.
friends. Shout out to Oak Smoke. And Oak was like, man, this is fire. Like, this
Yeah.
is fire. Like honestly, you know what I'm saying? So from there, I was like, man, like if this is all right, then I might as well just try to shoot my shot with other schools, no pun intended. And I was off the top freestyle bars. But yeah, so from there I just found like different conferences that I felt like would be a good fit for me based on playing style and stuff like that. And then by the end of it, had sent out maybe like 75 to 80 emails and got like 25 to 30 responses with 10 schools offering me a spot on their team by the end of it. And then from there, I ended up just deciding on Hood because of like their player development culture, the degree I would be getting, which is in management information systems. And so that's going to teach me how to code and learn computer science, which I think is
Huge.
really lucrative and valuable skill. And then, they're really, really good. They played in their conference championship last year. And just sort of like, so Hood was my last visit, and they had already signed 3 people or 4 people. So I was like, pretty much they were like if you will come to open gym, if we think you can play, like, then we'll take you. If not, like, no. And I ended up going to that open gym, balled out. They offered me a spot, and then shortly thereafter, after talking with them and a couple of other pretty cool schools, I chose them. And yeah, so super excited. I was actually just there last Friday watching practice, working out, got my little t-shirts, you know what I'm saying, my little gear.
Yes, sir.
Have a nice little signing day ceremony myself and my friend, my co-founder Malik from Drexel. We'll have our kids come out and just see that it's possible to do anything that you put your mind to if you work hard at it and you believe in yourself and you believe in a higher power and you try to do the right thing. More often than not, you'll be able to set out, to accomplish what you set out to achieve. So it's just super dope, and just having an opportunity to um, pursue what I wanted to do. At the end of the day, I had developed an inordinate amount of confidence in myself from a corporate perspective, and that I felt like I'm a pretty hireable dude. So I felt like working could wait. Um, and from there it was like pretty clear just that this was what I had to do, and stars kind of aligned. Like one thing really led to another, and it wasn't really forced. And the opportunity just came, and I was really prepared. So it seemed like I was pretty lucky.
Exactly, bro. And I mean, you touched on a lot of things, but I want to give you the credit, bro, of having the courage to do it. Like you said, to follow your dreams when it's very easy to work the desk job and do kind of what everybody does, bro. But you're going after what you love. So respect it, admire it. Everybody who's listening, look out. Jared Young, Hood College next year.
Go Blazers.
I'll be at the games, boy. You know it.
Yes.
And bro, I know you got to get to your workout, so we're at the end here. But just want to thank you so much for coming on, giving me your time. Really appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, thank you, man. It was a pleasure to mix it up with ML.
Yes,
Man. And man, appreciate you, bro, just for everything. And just really proud of you for starting off on this endeavor and sticking with it and just talking to people and sharing just your conversation and your power of conversation with the world, bro. So this is a super awesome thing, bro. And also we looking forward to some more works by ML, on the piano and
yep.
independent pad as well. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you, bro. Always inspiring me and always giving me that energy to keep going. I appreciate it, bro.
Yes, sir, my boy. Be safe out there.
Yes, sir. To the listeners, good night.
Peace.
Peace.